Right, in this video clip we're going to just be looking at drawing ogives and reading off ogives. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at a past exam question which is slightly different to what we normally see. The information is not given in a table but given in a histogram, so that's a bit unusual. So the first thing we have to actually decide is what size my classes are and how many pieces of data there are in each class. So this histogram shows that a street vendor has kept a record of sales for November and December, and the daily sales in rands are shown in the histogram. So at the bottom you've got your daily sales. So you can see each bar of the histogram is over 10. So the daily sales, the first group we're looking at, is from 60 to 70. Now remember, what we usually do is include the top or the bottom, but not both ends. For the sake of argument, I'm going to include both. And then obviously your next group is from 70 to 80, etc. We then need to look at the height of each bar to determine the frequency. So my middle column here is just how many frequencies, how many days did the daily sales meet that amount. So if we look at the daily sales of 60 to 70 Rand, you'll see that it's over here in line with 5 days. So we're going to go 5 days. Then your 70 to 80 is in line with 11. We then need to fill in the cumulative frequency column. Cumulative means how many days up until that point. So obviously in the first group they're 5, but then what we do is we add 5 and 11, so that's going to give me 16. We then add to the 16, we're going to add the 22. So we keep going down. So it's important to notice that we land up with a total of 61 days, which, remember, we were looking at the information for November and December, which does give us a total of 61 days. We then were asked to draw an ogive. Now remember, an ogive is a cumulative frequency curve. In previous grades, you started off by drawing a frequency polygon in which we put dots on the top of histograms and joined them. So that just shows frequency. Quick recap so you remember what I'm talking about. Whereas a cumulative frequency will be graphing this information over here. In the diagram sheet of the exam paper, you were given grid paper to draw your cumulative frequency onto, but just notice that the notches along the bottom, your daily sales, go up in 20s, but yet if you go back and look at your cumulative frequency table, they go up in 10s. So if you look at my table, we start at 60 and we go 60, 70, 80, 90, and those are the numbers that I need to mark on that bottom line of the cumulative frequency drawing. So we're going 60, we need to mark off the 70, which is about halfway between 60 and 80, obviously, 90, 110, 130. Now it's very important to remember that you put your dots for cumulative frequency at the end of the interval. So my first interval was 60 to 70, and the cumulative frequency at that point was 5. Now notice if we look across here, the first notch that they've made is a 10. So halfway is more or less there. So that's where my first dot is going to go, and that's the end of that interval. We then go 70 to 80, and remember it's not the frequency, but the cumulative frequency at this point is 16. And these little bars are going up in 2s, so I'm at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Is over there. Right, so I've plotted all the dots. You now need to join them in a smooth curve most of the time your ogive will be an S shape. Now, the previous, this interval 60 to 70, the foot began at 60. So what we do is we peg down to naught at the beginning of that interval. In other words, there were no daily sales less than 60. So we need to indicate that. Okay, so there is my ogive. Notice the top point should be in line with 61. I know I haven't drawn it very accurately there. It was quite hard. And yeah, so there you go. So there's my ogive. The question might ask you several other things. So in this question, for example, you were asked to read off the median. Now, since there were 61 days, we divide 61 by 2, not very helpful in this one, which is 30 and a half. So we're just above the 30. And what we do is we go and read across from just above 30 to my graph and down, and we can estimate, they always ask for an estimate, that the median of daily sales was, where are we there, about 80, just short of 90, so about 96, 97 rands every day. And then the next question said, what is the interval for the top 25% of the sales, of the daily sales? So the top 25, well, you need to work out 25%, or in fact 75%, because it's from the top, of that 61. And that gives you 45,75. So we go to 45,75. Which is approximately here. Sorry, it's better to use a ruler. And that would obviously then be from there till the top. So we're looking at, my top is in line with 120. So we're looking at about 88 to 120 rands. Okay, in the next question, your information was given in table format, which probably makes it easier. So it says 30 learners were asked to answer a question in maths. So immediately I'm picking up on the fact that when I get to my total at the end of my cumulative frequency, I'm looking for the total of 30. Then the time taken in minutes to answer the question correctly is shown in the frequency table. So in other words, 3 learners answered the question in between 1 and 3 minutes. And only 1 learner took between 11 and 13 minutes. So we asked to firstly construct a cumulative frequency table for the data. I'm just going to add on an extension to my table. I think it's just easier. If I was in an exam situation, I would redraw this. And again, remember cumulative frequency, you're adding on from the previous. So 3 plus 6 is 9, plus 7 is 16, etc. And as expected, we land up with a total of 30, matching my 30 learners. So there's my cumulative frequency table. We then asked to draw an ogive on the grid provided. So I'm going to turn the page, make a note of the first interval, and your intervals go up in 2s. So we need to go 1, 3, 5, and all the way up to 13 on my graph paper. Now, this time, you can see their intervals are quite accurate. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we need to go up to 13. I might as well just fill them in. It's going to make it easier for myself. And so each of these units actually representing a bar if I was drawing a histogram, but in this case, at the end of each interval, we're going to put our dot. So the first one from 1 to 3, so there we are in line with the 3. We're going to put a dot in line with 3 because my cumulative frequency was 3. Okay. Then in line with the 5, we need a 9. In line with 7, we need a 16. So I'm just reading this off the table from the previous page. In line with 9, we need a 24. In line with 11, we need a 29. And then in line with 13, we need our 30, so it's at the top there. All right, and then remember, we always draw our cumulative frequency as a nice, smoothest curve as we can get. All right, and then that interval, where my 3 is, started at 1, so that's where I'll peg it down to, because there were 0 people who took less than 1 minute. Okay, if we go back to the previous page, you can look at the question. It says, if a learner answers the question correctly in less than 4 minutes, now remember the minutes are shown on the horizontal axis, then he or she is classified as a gifted learner. Estimate the percentage of gifted learners in this group. So if we go back, we say, well, where is 4 minutes? And 4 minutes is here. So we're going to go up to my graph, read across, and my cumulative frequency says I'm in line with 6. In other words, 6 out of the 30 pupils, but they say as a percentage, so we're going to go times by 100. And that gives me 20% of these 30 learners are gifted. Right, in this last slide, I just want to summarize what we know about the ogive. So remember, your points are always plotted at the end of intervals, drawing with a smooth curve. If you're wanting to read off your quartiles, so your upper quartile, median, and lower quartile, you need to not do the n plus 1, but just n divided by 2, or n divided by 4. So if we look here, we've obviously accumulated 100, and if I divide 100 by 4, or if you're just looking for the median, you're going to go 100 divided by 2. So 100 divided by 2 is 50, hence my median is read off at 50, go across, go down. If you divide by 4, it will divide into quartiles, so every 25. So there's my lower quartile, there's my upper quartile. And then a reminder that you can draw a box and whisker from here. Obviously, in this case, my ogive stretches right the way across my grid paper, so it's very easy to see that where your maximum is in line with. Normally, we just look, where does my curve end at the top? So you're going to see you've got your dot in line there. Notice upper quartile, median, lower quartile, and minimum. And of course, you could read your 5-number summary off there, but we won't do that for today. So that's just a quick recap. You have been taught all of this in grade 10. If you're currently in grade 11 or grade 12 and watching it, if you're in grade 10, this might just be a refresher from what you've done in class.